Let's skip the formalities and get right into it. Parker's Solar Probe. This spacecraft was designed and built by the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. The purpose of this probe was to send it to the sun to collect valuable data. But this wasn't just any data they were looking for. They were looking for the fabled pristine 4K resolution super qualitative data. The only way they could do this was by flying the probe as close to the sun as feasibly possible. If you were currently on this probe as it was making its near-sun flyby, you would be inside of the sun's corona. The sun's corona is actually hotter than the surface, so your body would vaporize almost instantaneously. Not to mention that on this flyby, you will be on the fastest man-made object ever. This means whatever remains of you will be thrusted through the solar winds of the sun until nothing remains. Ultimately, once you get to those speeds, there is nothing you can do to stop the ride before your survival rate reaches 0. Voyager I. This spacecraft was built with the intention of learning about the outer planets and eventually interstellar space. The probe initially started off by studying the systems of Jupiter and Saturn. However, after completing this task and exceeding expectations, the mission was extended. The probe was then sent out of our solar system and into the deep reaches of space. There, it will face the full force of galactic cosmic radiation. Without the protection from the sun's heliosphere, there's nothing stopping the full exposure of the universe. Being on this spacecraft would be cold, dark, and lonely. Being the first object to leave the solar system means being the furthest from the sun. With that being said, your death will be slow and agonizing. You will most likely freeze to death before you starve or become dehydrated. Meanwhile, this would all be happening in the absence of light. You would basically be in a sub-temperature freezer with a glitter of sparkling stars, all without a glimmer of hope. Galileo. The purpose of this probe was to study Jupiter and his many moons. It did this by being the first spacecraft to enter into orbit around the planet. During its orbits, it learned many things about the characteristics of the red planet. This ranged from understanding its weather patterns to radiation belts atop its clouds. But of all the discoveries made on this mission, one stood out amongst the rest. That discovery being of the liquid oceans found on Jupiter's moon, Europa. What made this discovery different is that there was potential for life. For this reason, scientists did not want to contaminate the pristine environment and be the reason why we will always be alone in the universe. Once the mission had been completed, the spacecraft was directed towards Jupiter and plunged into its dense atmosphere. Being on the spacecraft while it made the descent would expose you to extreme pressures and heat. But you may not even make it that far, as Jupiter is basically one big storm planet. Combined with the wind speeds and immense pressure, you'd be torn to shreds before you can even make it through the upper atmosphere. Hubble Telescope. This telescope was put into low Earth orbit and tasked with observing the cosmos. The Hubble Telescope has rendered many images of our distant stars and galaxies. Unfortunately, being in low Earth orbit means that there is constant friction with Earth's atmosphere. For this reason, the Hubble Telescope is slowly falling towards Earth and will eventually burn up in the atmosphere. If you were on the spacecraft, you will burn up as well as you try to hold on for dear life. Your skin will be burned and flung off by the rapidly approaching atmosphere. Because the telescope is so big, it wouldn't burn up completely in the atmosphere, and chunks of it will still make it to Earth, along with a few chunks of you. Fortunately, NASA recently attached a universal docking mechanism to the telescope. This would allow for another spacecraft to either bring the telescope down more gently or boost it up further into the atmosphere. Either way, your fate is in the hands of NASA scientists, which may be a relief or a sign of worry. Pioneer 10. The mission of this probe was similar to Galileo's in the aspect of learning more about Jupiter. Yeah, she's a beaut, isn't she? The spacecraft made a brief flyby of Jupiter before wisping away into the outer solar system. In doing so, it collected data on the planet and learned about its composition as well as locating its magnetic field. Pioneer 10 continued outside of the solar system for many miles before eventually losing contact. At this point, you would be in the same situation as Voyager I as you freeze to death in a starry abyss. However, the difference is the lack of communication from the probe. Although we lost contact, we can speculate roughly to where the spacecraft is based on physics. A more imaginative person would think aliens might have gotten to it by now. But us educated researchers know we are the aliens, and that probe with you attached is a declaration of insanity. Godspeed, young maniac. Godspeed. Anyway, that's all I have for this video. Stay cool and peace out.